Some general rules when filling out the pre-job. Do not leave anything blank. Someone auditing the document, whether it be OSHA, the customer, or safety, may assume that by leaving it blank, that section was either ignored or overlooked. While neither may be true, putting something in that place.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
While neither may be true, putting something in that place will keep them from badgering you for an answer. So if a section has no relevance to the work you're conducting on that site, then enter NA for non-applicable. This leaves no room for the imagination. Be thorough. Fill out the pre-job with the anticipation that OSHA, the customer, and safety will be scrutinizing that document, because if anything does happen on that job site, they will. Print legibly, no crayons. You see this gray column to the far right? Don't worry about this. The crew on site does not need to fill this out. This is a tool utilized by your supervisor or even safety as a means of auditing the pre-job to determine if it was filled out correctly and satisfactorily. Up top here we have all of the USC divisions listed. Select the one that you're representing. List your job number. This will be the number listed on your job prints. Check with your supervisor if you have any questions. List today's date, and then enter the job name. Like the job number, this should be right there on your job prints. Again, check with your supervisor if you have any questions. Let's spend a few moments on the phone numbers. First, this one here is the emergency customer contact. Putting 911 here only doesn't cut it because that's not the customer's number. That's public emergency services number. Think about it this way. If you have a moment, like if you just caused an unplanned outage or breached a gas line, then that customer is going to want to know that right now. This is the number you want listed here. Here you have the non-emergency customer contact name and number. This is for those other than moments. It's more of a casual contact number, if you will, like when you have a question about a job spec or a troublesome landowner or an interloper sporting Bermuda shorts. If this is the case, this would be the number to call. Anything other than those moments. So if you're working for Jamoculus Kusnafenart in the Volleyball Electric, then jot down his or her name here along with their contact number. Responsible foreman. This is the person in charge of that site. If there are 3 crews with 3 foremen working together under a single pre-job, then only one of them will be the go-to foreman calling all the shots on that job site. This is the foreman that gets all of the credit when things go good or all of the blame when... Anyway, that's the name and phone number that goes here. And whichever general foreman this job falls under, well, enter that name and number here. Job location. We've got crews working in multiple states, so a street address alone is not going to be enough. Include the city and state. Enter the address of the nearest hospital. Phone apps and websites can assist in expediting this process considerably. The next couple of sections are in regards to the underground damage prevention. Has 811 been notified? In other words, have you submitted for an underground damage prevention ticket? Select the appropriate box. The next box asks you to enter the dig ticket number. If you do not have one because you do not need one for this site, then don't just leave the section blank. Remember, leaving it blank lets imaginations wander. Enter NA. Determine the local fire danger and enter that information here. Again, there's apps or websites out there that can help you obtain information for your specific work area. Now over here, this block is pretty much part 2 of the fire danger topic. Do you remember several years ago when California was burning to the ground and claims that electrical utilities were a major part of it? It was argued that overhead electrical lines were breaking, falling to the ground, and sparking the brush, resulting in massive fires. Since that time, utility companies and their contractors cannot get fire insurance. In short, what this means is should one of our crews be responsible for starting a 300-acre fire which burns down 73 homes, destroys 96 vehicles, and kills 54 head of cattle and 1 dog, well, that entire cost will come out of our pockets, which could very well result in bankruptcy. Which gave rise to this portion of the pre-job. If any part of the job involves hot work, or if the fire danger is medium or high, then a fire extinguisher must be out of the vehicle or off of the equipment and sitting on that site at the ready. It is to be no further away than 50 feet from the potential fire eruption. And what constitutes hot work? Any work producing spark, flame, or intense heat. By intense heat, I mean heat sufficient enough to potentially combust nearby materials. And hot work includes working energized conductors that, should they fall, can spark a fire. Because as we were told, that's what was happening on the West Coast. Has a pre-flight video been taken? This is taking video and photos of the site before you set up trucks and conduct any work. That company logo on the side of your vehicle, that's a $sign to a lot of people, and they are counting on your arrival so that they can make false claims to finally get their aged septic tank or cracked driveway replaced. At the very least, one thoroughly narrated video and 30 photos are recommended. Be sure to encourage crew members to maintain hydration, and this is applicable to all seasons. List the safety topic that was discussed today. This does not have to be the distributed weekly safety topic. Listing that topic for one day does make sense, but for 5 straight days? No. Take for instance, if there was any soft excavation to be conducted on that site today, then reviewing with the crew how to verify the utility responses on that dig ticket, that can be the safety topic discussed for that day. Identified procedures involved today. This is a laundry list of the higher profile and more common characteristics associated with everyday job sites. Review each line to determine if it describes an aspect of work to be included in your day's planned job scope. If it is, then check yes. If not, check no. To the right of each listing is the safety manual section referencing the policies and procedures related to that subject. Here we have the job scope and job tasks. We're going to go ahead and set this one aside for a later discussion. What equipment and methods will be used in the job for the day? Listed are the more popular options. Check all that are relevant, and there's always room for write-ins, so if you don't see it listed, add it. If you run out of room, add it between columns. Has all of the above equipment been inspected to ensure proper working condition? If any tools and/or equipment are being used on the site, then as per company policy, all must be inspected prior to their use. Has the electronic inspection been completed for all applicable units? If vehicles and/or equipment are being used on site, then as per company policy, all must be inspected prior to their use. This section focuses on the electrical exposure hazard. Fill in as much of the information as possible. Cal is the calculated heat energy release that can be expected under fault conditions. This is measured in calories per centimeter squared. Unless the utility owner supplies us this information, you won't put anything here because this is determined through an arc flash analysis, using variables that only the utility owner is privy to. Now before we leave this section, what if you're not an electrical crew but you are doing work around overhead power lines and haven't got a clue as to the circuit numbers, voltage levels, and minimum approach distances? Well, that's simple. Mark it as energized, mark it as overhead, and list 20 feet as the minimum approach distance. This verifies that you have identified the hazard, energized, you know where it's located, overhead, and how you're going to protect yourself from it by staying at least 20 feet away. If you do not have any identified electrical hazards on your job site, then do not leave this section blank. Write down NA. Next is where we list the identified hazards and the prescribed safety measures. We're going to go ahead and set this section aside for later as well. Finally, the signatures. Anyone signing that pre-job is acknowledging that they understand the identified job scope and job tasks, understand their role in those tasks, are fully aware of the hazards on that job site, are responsible for protecting themselves from those identified hazards, and that they understand the stop work clause. Also listed here is the incident reporting hotline number should anything occur on your site. Be sure to dial the extension number. If you don't, your message may never make it through. Print the name of all the workers that are involved with or can potentially be affected by the work being conducted on that site for that day. To the right of that, enter the worker's classification, whether they're a foreman, a journeyman lineman, a journeyman subtech, an operator, truck driver, groundman, general foreman, third step apprentice, sixth step apprentice, what have you. Notice the column here labeled DO. This is for dedicated observer. Some of our customers are requiring a dedicated observer to be present on the ground and watching all aerial work being conducted. This dedicated observer is to have no other duties or responsibilities while that aerial work is being conducted. If this is a requirement for your crew, then indicate which employee or employees have been designated as the dedicated observers. If you're not sure if your customer requires one, then contact your supervisor. And remember, no one is to be signing that pre-job until the contents of that document have been verbally reviewed and discussed with them, and all questions have been answered. As for any visitors or interlopers arriving on site, well, we pretty much beat the stink out of that in another video.